Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the AFSA Oh, jeez, man, I messed it up already. I have the Education Foundation on my brain. That's why I said that. Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the AFSA Extra Credit Podcast. Another excellent edition here today. We are joined by Brian Johnson, Vice President of Revenue Operations at DataScan. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm well. How about yourself, Dan?
Pretty good. It's hot. Other than that, it's fine. We're talking today a little bit about risk, managing risk, auditing said management of risk. It's a gigantic issue anytime, but particularly now. So before we dive too far in, give us a little bit of a high view of yourself, your career, and a little bit about DataScan.
Yeah. So I've been in the industry, tangent to the industry, for 25 plus years now. I started out my career in the securitization space, did a lot of work in third-party servicing, helped and was part of the team that helped rebuild the captive finance company for Volvo. Spent some time at Southeast Toyota Finance under the Center One umbrella. Spent a little time at JP Morgan. So been in and around the space for a good long while. The last 10 years, though, I've been at DataScan, and under this current, kind of purview, I have the marketing team, the sales team, and the client success model. So once a client engages with us, they unfortunately for them, they're kind of stuck with me for a good minute. And we have been very, very engaged and thankful to be engaged with AFSA on a number of initiatives over the past handful of years. And I'd also be sort of remiss not to thank AFSA. I know that commercial lending is not necessarily part of your charter, but as you cover vehicle finance, it's a pretty core part of the business, and you do leave space for it. So we do very, very much appreciate it as an institution at DataScan, but also I think as an industry, we appreciate it.
No, thank you. We appreciate your... So let's dig in here a little bit, Brian. I think so every time we do one of these podcasts, I ask our guests, just give me some like rich bullets. And I love this. I love the thing at the top of my little info sheet here, which is general sentiment. If you're waiting for the next audit to manage risk, you're already behind. Tell me what that means.
Yeah, I think that is true. And I think that the challenge that the industry has today and has for, the last 40 years or more is the fact that audits are not timely, right? Like you have an audit performed today, that information is extremely accurate and extremely valuable today. But every day that goes by, that value erodes. And so 15 days after that audit, you don't really know or understand what's happening at that dealership at a floor plan level or commercial lending level because you sort of lost your eyes and ears at that time. And so if there are challenges, whether the units are sold out of trust or the dealer is double flooring or whatever it is they're doing, you sort of have blind spots. And those blind spots kind of get worse until the next time you do an audit.
Right.
That's what that means.
Yeah. One would think too that there are some fairly straightforward ways around this. Like photography or video or a lot of cars have GPS now. Why don't those three things kind of help solve this issue completely?
Yeah, you kind of have to compartmentalize them a little bit because of just how different they are. There's been a lot of interest in new technologies around photography, video capture, some of which has actually been very helpful. But let's be real, it's not the game changer people hoped for. I think that when you look at digital audits or digital opportunities like video or photography, the theory is great, right? Like I can get my eyes on a unit, I can understand its position. It actually all works extremely well. But in practice, that work shifts to the dealer, right? The dealer has to get involved. They have to take kind of an active role in the risk that's associated with the lender's position. So if it's too much of a lift for them, they push back, right? So if they're having to, take photos of more than 15 units, 20 units, 5 units in some cases, they push back, and understandably so, right? It doesn't feel good for them. It feels like it feels like they're doing your job, as a lender, and adoption can be very low. Now, we have seen successes, and I'm sure other organizations have seen successes when you talk about video or photography based audits when it comes to supplemental audits, low volume audits, remote audits, right? So remote location audits, all those have opportunities to really help augment risk from that standpoint. But you're just not going to see adoption at a large scale just with that piece of data. Now, you asked about GPS. GPS again is sort of the holy grail, right? Like if a lender could get GPS pings on a whatever interval basis they want, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, and have that information funnel in, on all their units, new or used, well, that would be a holy grail. And you'd think that would be the right path that organizations would want to take, but it's very difficult, right? The OEMs control that data. They've invested a lot in those technologies. They want a lot back out of them, right? So they want to recoup their investment. Then you have, privacy concerns. It would be a terrible situation, right? If you did not, or the dealer or the OEM did not turn off that GPS in a unit. It was sold to a consumer. The consumer takes it home, and as a lender, you ping it, and you find out more information about who bought it than you'd want, right? Like that's not the intention, but it's a bad scenario. And so there's privacy concerns, and those accidental hits can be problematic, and nobody wants that liability.
Right. Yeah. You're hitting on something that is, I often think about is you don't want to have to rely on another party for something that is instrumental to your business at a core, right? I don't want to have to worry about the dealer doing their job. Great dealers. We love dealers, but it's a lot, right? And we don't want to have to worry about that for the lender to get the information they want and to continue to be compliant with laws and all that kind of thing.
I think that's right. And I think that the real sort of thought process, which gets us to where I think that the industry is going to end up going, is that you can take a lot of pieces of data, do small portions of them to create a picture, right? So if I have, a portfolio and I'm doing, a handful of, video-based or photography-based audits a month, or if I'm capturing, units that I couldn't see that are whatever, out on rental, or if they're out on display at the mall, or whatever those things are, and then I can combine them with intermittent GPS hits and other pieces of data, well, now all of a sudden I can paint a picture that is a little bit different than just trying to rely on one piece of data to solve that problem.
Got it. And so is that the idea behind what is a little bullet in my note here? It's called continuous monitoring. Is that kind of how that works? And could you give me a little bit more color on it?
That's right. And again, kind of going back to your very first question, right? The traditional audit and how a traditional audit works, right? That point in time audit, again, extremely valuable, does a great job in that moment, but it erodes. And so that really got, us to thinking at DataScan on how we could potentially flip that on its head. And the only way you could really flip that on its head is to figure out a way to be able to monitor continuously, monitor on a daily basis. And so at its core, continuous monitoring really is about pulling together multiple data points to paint that clear picture on a daily basis. So those can include servicing trends, unit aging, GPS pings, photo verifications, sales data, even duplicate VIN activity. When you sort of combine these things together, all of a sudden you can paint a picture of risk management that's very, very different. The challenge is, and it's just like we just mentioned, all of those pieces of data are sort of isolated, right? They aren't like super easy to get as an aggregate. So that's where we are trying to develop, our product called Risk Gauge. That platform does kind of create this open architecture to allow both ourselves and our customers or lenders the ability to grab that data and pull it into a single source.
Interesting. You mentioned their sales data. So you had presented something actually at our annual meeting last year called a retail clearinghouse. And there was definitely some interest there. And I think you probably mentioned it at the vehicle finance conference too, seeing as that's the wheelhouse. Anything to know on that effort? Any update there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, it really is something that we think is very transformative in our business, transformative in the industry. And it really is designed to be, an industry solution, really sort of agnostic to whether you're a DataScan customer or not. The industry should be able to leverage this both on the retail side and the wholesale side, or the floor plan side. So as everybody understands, one of the riskiest positions a floor plan lender has is that window between when a car is sold and when the car is paid off to the floor plan lender. That's when the retail clearinghouse really comes in. So we're working on the infrastructure right now, right? So again, to paint the picture for those that don't remember what the retail clearinghouse is the DataScan has been working with all of our floor plan lenders to effectively stack and order all of the VINs that sit, in the space and donate them to the retail clearinghouse. We then will work with our retail partners, right? Usually the same company, right? So, think lender to lender, they have a retail arm and a floor plan arm, and pull in those daily fundings into the retail clearinghouse and match them up so that you can match disparate lenders from one side to the other to create that transparency to the industry. So right now we're really working on the infrastructure. We're working on security, data sharing, everything that sort of is around that sort of infrastructure and effort. And the plan is to start accepting retail funding data from indirect lenders early next summer and match it up against that broader floor plan portfolio. That's going to give us that visibility that just doesn't exist today. Right now, we're kind of running some additional tests to make sure that it functions the way it should function. We expect to have a few beta clients later this winter, and then roll it out, late next spring, early next summer to the entire industry.
It's interesting you mentioned that because this kind of the kind of system you're building here seems to go against the first part of our conversation. Kind of goes against the physical audit business. So how are you working with those two kind of seemingly conflicting priorities?
No, that's a great point. And honestly, we have thought about that a lot. The truth is that we don't believe that physical audits will ever go away. They won't go away completely. We think that audit volume can shrink, which is a good thing, right? It reduces that friction at the dealership. It reduces the overall, sort of variable cost structure that lenders have to deal with. And we think that it shifts, again, that risk management mindset in a real positive way. For us, we understand that it cannibalizes our business, to a certain extent. But the reality is that between, just the shift in audits and then other industries, right? We do audits in other verticals besides automotive, power sports, agriculture, trucking, other sorts of verticals. Those spaces are much further behind. And so there is an opportunity that still exists in the physical audit floor plan space above and beyond automotive that's going to last a very, very long time. So it's sort of an augmentation from that standpoint. But if you really kind of sit back and look at what we're doing and what the industry is sort of doing in general, captives are going to benefit greatly. I mean, just right out of the gate, we may see captives in the automotive space that 2 years from now may never do another physical audit. Banks, however, will probably continue to do so, partly because they're regulated to do so. But they could see a shift in how often they do it if you're able to sort of do that or perform continuous monitoring and wrap that up with every now and then you do that physical audit or that stake in the ground that really reconciles their entire portfolio. But it's a unique position, right? We're in a unique position. DataScan has kind of the scale, the customer set, the data to really pull off this innovation. And so we're very excited about it overall for our business.
Interesting. Very interesting. A couple of months ago, we had the other Brian at DataScan, Brian Kaprowski, on the podcast. And I asked him this question, and he said it was a work in progress. So I pitch it to you now, as I do to everyone else. AI seems to be in the water. No way to get around it. So to the extent to which you can share is what's DataScan doing with AI? How do you view it? And what kind of way are we thinking about how it can impact the industry?
Yeah, I listen, it is a work in progress, and Brian is right. And if for no other reason, then there's just a lot of kind of nervousness from our customer set, right? We have highly regulated banks that are part of this, part of our ecosystem, and they want to make sure that their data is not used in a way that is, counterproductive to what they're trying to accomplish from an AI perspective. All that said, there are opportunities within, core systems to be able to automate functionality or automate, let's say, audit recaps is a good example, right? Like, so when you're getting close to closing out, let's say an audit, is it possible for AI to really review your entire body of work going into it and create a recap, giving that analyst a head start on the work that they're doing? So some work augmentation is kind of some low-hanging fruit. We're also seeing AI play into how we have deployed to the cloud, right? So, cloud to cloud, like data sharing, I think is something that is going to impact our world, and AI will play a critical role in that. And so if customers are building out, their data mart and leveraging DataScans or data that sits on DataScan systems today, that sort of AI and cloud to cloud sharing could be very beneficial for those customers and for those lenders to be able to leverage that data in their own data mart, combine it with their other data points, for their internal workings. So there are starting to bubble up real opportunities to get AI into the business, but we're being very careful. We're being very cautious about it. We want to make sure that it's right for the business, that it's right for our customers, and that it's transparent all along the way.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. So about the minute we have left, Brian, what's one thing lenders can start to do right now, tomorrow, to start moving in the right direction on this stuff?
Yeah, I think, as much as anything, honestly, Dan, I think it's going to be change management, right? Thinking about what it means for you to evaluate your risk position from that point in time audit to a continuous monitoring model. And I think that it will disrupt, our clients and anybody that adopts this sort of methodology. It's going to disrupt their operation a little bit. And I think that it's really about thinking about how, as a leader or as a risk unit, how I view that data, how I think about digesting that data, and then ultimately, how do I change the behaviors of my analysts to make sure that I'm not, putting the lender in a bad spot, but also operationalizing that data in a way that is efficient and effective for them. I think that's the biggest thing, is that they have to really start to rethink how they operationalize, this model.
Excellent. Well, Brian Johnson from DataScan, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks for listening to the AFSA Extra Credit Podcast. To learn more about our guest today, check out the show notes wherever you get podcasts or at afsaonline.org/podcast. While you're there, be sure to browse our other great resources, including the blog, which is an excellent source for the latest from AFSA. Be sure to follow AFSA on X at AFSA_DC and AFSA State Government Affairs team at AFSA_SGA. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Just search for the name. Tune in next time for more Extra Credit. Thanks for listening.